Welcome to Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And we're a weekend, and we had our first game with the Miami Dolphins preseason game. So we're getting closer and closer to finally getting that day one kickoff. So I'm excited. Every week we get closer. I'm excited. Right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in Tennessee, joint practices with the Tennessee Titans. Personally, I'm just crossing my fingers for no injuries or nothing significant. And, hopefully we can come out of this unscathed. The team can come out of this unscathed. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Michael Pless. How have you been, my friend?
Doing well. It's football season, so we're getting closer to the start of the regular season, which is nice. Get this preseason out of the way.
Yeah, preseason and beer, man. You can't go wrong. And speaking of beer, we have a special guest. My man, Chris Fisher. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. And I'm not drinking beer tonight. I'm drinking Tito's.
There we go. Hey, just as good.
The last year sponsor of our friends at What the Bucs. So much love to Tito's Vodka. I love it.
Yeah, Tito's Vodka and What the Buck. You can't go wrong. So we were talking about, this is the Bucs podcast, and I would like to really get your opinion on, what did you think, or what did you see that you paid attention to with the first preseason game?
Yeah. Oh God, it's good to talk Bucs football again, guys. I haven't done this in a while. Do you guys give out awards?
See if you can remember how this works.
Yeah. What's that guy's name? Jamerson went. No, I'm just kidding. No, I approach preseason games outside of game 3 kind of the same way. So I look for particular storylines. In this particular game, I was focused on the secondary, kind of the young players we had there. I wanted to see what this newly formed defensive line would do. But I was focused on the quarterbacks and how that rotation would work, and the running game, which ties into the offensive line. And the first thing that stuck out to me, guys, and unfortunately, I don't get coaches film for preseason, and maybe Game Pass will change that, but I'll dig into that in the regular season. But just from the broadcast film and what I can tell people is I was super impressed with the patchwork first team offensive line, because we know as long as everyone's healthy, that's not the first team offensive line that we're going to see week 1 at New Orleans, guys. But from Donovan Smith to Ali Marpet to, my boy, you guys know my boy, Ryan Jensen. I was so impressed. And I'll give Evan Smith credit too, right? And then it was a Seton, I believe, was starting at right tackle. I got to give those guys credit, because this was a completely different look from what we saw last year from the Bucs, is that their offensive line was getting pushed around. I saw them pushing the defensive line and linebackers of the Miami Dolphins around and opening these gaping holes for when our team got in the red zone for Peyton Barber to run through, for Ronald Rojo, everyone calls him Rojo, to run through. That's what stood out to me from this game. Everyone talked about the quarterback play. Everyone talked about the young corners, the young safety, how impressive they were. My takeaway from this first game, from the positive of what I see to move forward and what I hope transitions into the regular season, was the play of the first team offensive line, because that to me is the catalyst for what was the biggest weakness last season, was scoring points in the red zone. Because if you can't run the ball, even if you have Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson and Brait and O.J. Howard and Jameis Winston, if you can't run the ball, and you can't run the ball in the red zone, you're not going to score touchdowns. And that's what was the difference last year of 9 wins versus 5 wins. And that's my biggest takeaway of what I saw from the first preseason game at Miami.
All right. Michael Pless.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. When I watch preseason, I usually look for like trends. So, just seeing the offensive line, like Chris was saying, opening up holes, and then Peyton Barber having the vision to see the holes and make cutbacks and drive and get yards was very refreshing. Same with Rojo and his early carries. He looked good. So, but yeah, I mean, that was our biggest weakness last year. There was just too many times where either in pass protection, there'd be too many breakdowns right when the ball is handed off, or they're trying to drop back and pass. So, yeah, that was a big plus. And then also the play calling was refreshing. Just seeing passing on first down was really nice to see, coming out in an attack with 2 passes and get the offense moving and show a little bit more fight as far as attacking the defense and setting the tone. So that was nice to see. And then, defensively, it's still a work in progress. I thought they did a good job of getting stops when they had to. I think they were on third down defense. They were like 0 for 6, or holding Miami 0 for 6, I think, for a little bit, which is encouraging. So, yeah, good signs. And it was a very entertaining game, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and just getting to see the rookies out there playing Whitehead, I was really surprised that, and I had very low expectations, but just to see Whitehead out there playing and just being around the ball, it's encouraging to see that, from players. So I'm really excited for him, and hopefully he continues to grow, and hopefully we can see. And guys, maybe you can kind of clear things up for me here. With the preseason, will we see more of the first team this game and the next game? Or I forgot how that goes. The first team plays to halftime this game or the next game. And then the fourth, I know the fourth game, they don't come out at all hardly. But how does that? It is the third game. They play till halftime, right?
Game 3, you'll see the starters for the majority of the first half. And that's in Tampa, so that's good for fans, right? They get to see the home crowd gets to see that. The interesting question with that is, what's the quarterback rotation going to look like, right, for Game 3? Because as they've been, the first game, which is all we know, is kind of first quarter Fitz, second quarter Winston, and then you've got my boy Ryan Griffin plays the rest of the game. Game 3, what do you do? Do you do Fitzpatrick? Because he's starting the first 3 weeks, like barring injury, we know that. Do you play him the entire first half, or is it still going to be some type of rotation? And what do you do with Jameis in the third? So I still think, from a storyline standpoint, the rotation of the quarterback is still the most interesting thing to look at in this preseason, because the suspension is happening. Fitz is starting the first 3 weeks, and beyond that, you would assume Jameis is going to be the starter. But if this team comes out 3-0, how do you make a change from that point? You got to worry about injury, because Griffin's your only experienced backup. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see what this staff does, and that's why I think it's so interesting, because the preseason usually isn't. It's kind of that who's going to make. It's like a preview for the season. I think you can pick up a couple trends that you may see with kickers, with red zone scoring, with certain trends that you can look at. But it's really, who's those bubble guys? That's what I usually watch for. Who's that fifth receiver? Who's that Adam Humphries from a couple years ago, right? That everyone was watching in training camp. I'm like, this guy's got a legit shot to make the team. Or Pat Murray's out kicking Connor Barth in training camp. He's got a legit shot to make the. I got to shout out my boy. So it's those type of things. But with the suspension that we know of, to me, the quarterback situation is really intriguing. It's an intriguing storyline to watch this entire preseason.
So is there anybody that you see, that you've heard about, that could potentially not end up on this team this season? Because this has been pretty competitive in a lot of different positions, a lot more competition than we've seen in years past. Is there anybody that kind of stands out to you that you're like, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make it?
It's hard to answer from one preseason game, because I'm not at training camp every day, but I can, if I look to one position, and unfortunately it's an incomplete response right now because we didn't see Sean Wilson. Right. So I'm looking at the running back position, and I'm saying, okay, if Sean Wilson can contribute on special teams, does he unseat Charles Sims? Right. We know Charles Sims is a favorite of the coaching staff. He hasn't really shown that he can run between the tackles over the last year, and then one preseason game. Right. So when he was given the opportunity last year, when Doug went down, or when Doug was out, he didn't step up. And you kind of saw what happened last season. But that, to me, he's a bubble guy. So a guy like Sean Wilson, the Bobo Wilson injury situation right now could be something that's interesting. And then maybe cornerback. That's really the only positions I see right now that, are there guys on the bubble, because offensive line, I think, is pretty well set unless some guy just comes out and is lights out in preseason games and just impresses. I think our defensive line is pretty well set. Linebacker, maybe. But that maybe that last cornerback, like a guy like Javian Elliott, I don't know. Yeah. Is he going to make the team? I don't know. Bobo Wilson, yeah, he could, but if he's hurt and he misses a couple weeks, I don't know how serious his injury is. Do some of those younger guys step up and win that position? And I want to see Sean Wilson this week, guys. He's practicing again. With just the hype from him, and I know what he can do from a kick return standpoint. And you guys know, when it comes to winning those last roster spots, it comes down to how you play on special teams. That's how you win a spot on this team.
Yeah, because versatility is huge with Jason Light and with Dirk Cutter. Being able to do more than just one thing, it just plays a huge part. And you look at a lot of the players that they've brought in, and versatility. And, I think Michael brings that out quite a bit, that versatility is huge when you bring in players. Yeah. And like you said, special teams is going to play a big part. I think to me, just looking at how much time these quarterbacks had to get the ball out, I was very happy with the offensive line. And that's a good place to look and just see how this team progresses. They've kind of set the standard in this first game, and let's kind of watch and see if they continue to improve. But I really like the fact that they had a little bit more time to get the ball out, and both quarterbacks look good. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat here. Let's see, somebody mentioned Alan Cross, and Alan Cross is a guy that you didn't hear his name in the offseason, and you see him making plays, and the coaching staff really likes him as well. He's another guy that could potentially make this team as well.
Lock it down. He's on the team, guys. He serves. He's that stalker role, right? They got rid of Luke last year, and I put Cross right now above Anthony Auclair. Because he can play fullback. And right. Dude, he when he gets in the game situation, he shows up. And Adam Cross has got good hand, or Alan Cross, excuse me. Sorry. You guys got to stick with me on this because I don't say their names now every single day of the week.
Oh no, you're fine, man. Hey, listen, bro. You're at home. We're just talking football.
Dude, I'm the guy who used to call Cameron Brate Connor Brate, and I did that. And I would say Josh McCown, I'd say Luke McCown. Like, I had to call McCown for an entire season, guys, because that's when I started my podcast. But Cross is a lock. He's in my opinion the third tight end at this point, because he can play multiple positions. You guys know they don't have a traditional fullback, if you will. So Cross is a lock. Block it down right now. You heard it here first.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll definitely put that down. So again, we've kind of touched on a lot of different positions here, and I kind of want to go back to the defense a little bit, to the secondary. Was there anybody in the secondary that you saw that kind of stuck out to you, or put themselves in a position to get more playing time? Just how they played.
Brent Grimes, no, not him. Hargraves, no, not him, because he got hurt. No, I mean, guys, the secondary, Whitehead, everyone's hyping. I'm a little bit nervous with how he's lowering his head. I almost thought they were going to throw a penalty on that one hit that he had in the end zone. I was cringing, like, don't throw a flag on that. That's not an illegal hit. So he seems to be pretty physical. So I have a little bit of concerns about him. I don't want to go back to like Swearinger, our former safety at this point. I don't know how he's going to last in this new NFL, because he lowered his head all the time and would try to lower the boom. He wasn't that good at doing it, but I don't. The secondary, everyone is already penciling in Carlton Davis as the starter after seeing him for limited time in preseason. I still say that it's Grimes and VH3 if they allow VH3, and if both are healthy. If they allow VH3 to do what he does best, I think those are your starters. And then we'll see guys like MJ Stewart and Carlton Davis, and I think VH3 Hargraves is multifaceted. I think he can play multiple positions. I think you're going to see injuries in the secondary because VH3 has been hurt. Grimes is old. Sorry, guys, but he's old. He's 34. He doesn't hit people because he doesn't want to get hurt. So that's not his strength, is tackling. He's tremendously gifted from an athletic standpoint. He will get beat at times, but his vertical is absolutely ridiculous. But he's not going to play all 16 games. I just don't see it. So it's developing the youth. Sorry, guys, for the text. It's developing the youth on the secondary. But no one stood out to me. I don't get too hyped about a preseason game.
And I guess from my perspective, these are vanilla plays, and you have to be able to go out and make the play. And I think that's what sticks out to me, is being able to consistently go out and make plays, and not have your name on the wrong end of a broadcast where you've given up a huge play. But just the idea that they're out there and they're playing right now, and they're rookies. We have to keep that in mind. They are rookies. Wow, Robert Green. No, they are rookies. So, we have to make sure that our expectations are at, somewhat of a decent level.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Plus, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what I have to say, I thought all 3 rookies, what I liked is they were all in the right spot. So they're all in the right position for the most part. They're always around the football, which I appreciate. A lot of competitiveness, which is nice to see, and they fought for their plays. So I was a big fan of Jordan Whitehead before the draft. I thought he was a player. He just reminds me, he's like a poor man's Budda Baker. Budda Baker is very good for Arizona. I think he's kind of got that similar style where he loves to come down and make plays in the box. So I think he'll be a welcome addition. I can kind of see him starting to take over like Justin Evans did last year, coming in like middle of the season and making some plays. So, but as far as the corner situation, I agree with Chris. I think VH3 and Brent Grimes should be your starters. Again, I understand you can't press all the time, but, just having these guys, within 5 yards of the receiver, I think is a must. And I think you got to let VH3, just play like he likes to play, and that's aggressive, and let him go after the football, because he can make plays if he's in his right spot and he's able to disrupt the timing of these receivers, because honestly, these receivers in the NFL are just too good to allow them to go wherever they want. I mean, if you can't disrupt the timing, you're going to have trouble, and you're going to be nickeled and dimed down the field. And unless you get turnovers, then it's not going to be good for your defense.
Can I go on a little bit of a tangent on VH3 just for one quick second? Because I feel like there's been a couple people on the social medias and on the Twitters that have actually watched the film and saw what happened last year and will back up exactly what I'm about to say. But when his confidence was at its peak, when VH3 was moved to the nickel, and he knew in Minnesota, and I think the Scott Reynolds interview with him and the article that Scott wrote on Pewter Report backs this up. And I was saying this the entire last year because the film shows it. When you allow him to get his confidence and do what he does best, he's an extremely talented corner. Now, when you take him from what he excelled at in college and then say, well, we're going to play cover 4 and you're responsible for the deep quarter of the field, your safeties rotate out. So on this play, you've got Conti. On this play, you've got Tandy. On this play, you got Justin Evans. On this play, you got TJ Ward. How do you expect the corners to step up and be confident in the guys that are playing with them when they got a new guy standing next to them every couple plays? So when they moved him to the nickel cornerback, and you can see it in the New Orleans game. Now, even though Tampa got blown out in that game, you guys know, at New Orleans, VH3 played a tremendous game. And when Brent Grimes was hurt, and I know people say, well, it's Carolina. Carolina doesn't have any cornerbacks. Wide receivers. Well, Carolina won a lot of games last year, and you could see the transformation of Hargraves and how his confidence was building, and how they'd throw deep to a wide receiver and he would shut them down. And you saw him kind of jaw into the crowd, and he's hyped up, he's confident. That's the side that Brent Grimes is playing right now, is the same side that VH3 was excelling at the University of Florida, and why he was drafted in the position where he was. So in my opinion, if Grimes would have moved on, I don't think it would have been that big of a hit if you have a healthy VH3 and you allow him to do what he does best. But when Grimes eventually does, if we give Hargraves, pending on this year, and he can stay healthy, another contract, I think fans are going to start to see what he can do. And I don't just say that because I saw and I watched every single game of him of his college career, and I went to UF, and I'm a Gator homer, whatever people want to say. But look, there's guys on this team that were Gator, like Major Wright had no more business being on this team, right? I'm not going to blow smoke up your arse if there's a Gator I'm trying to push on you guys. No, I'm not. Like Pat Murray went to Fordham. He's like one of my favorite players. Joe Jurevicius is my favorite player of all time that played for the Bucs. He didn't go to the University of Florida. So I'm not biased when I present this to you. I'm just saying, ease it up a little bit on the bus talk and all this about VH3, because if you watch the film, in certain games that he played, he was the best corner on that team, regardless of what Grimes was doing, because Grimes was getting beat many times, and the film will show that. So let's kind of ease back a little bit and understand that if you allow him to do what he does best, he's going to be perfectly fine, and you could see him in the future as a lockdown corner for this team.
I can see absolutely. That again. Oh, go ahead, Pless.
No, I agree, and I think adding a Carlton Davis and MJ Stewart, I think, is just going to make him that much better, because competition brings out the best, and I think what MJ Stewart is bringing with his fire, I think that's going to drive Hargraves to another level as well, because I think him. And I like that the coaching staff is putting a confidence in him to play outside and inside as well. I hope we see that, where he's the outside corner in base defense, and then they move him into the slot. Now with the rookies, how well, obviously, but just a more aggressive style would be really good.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I did notice, is that with Vernon Hargraves, there were times where he wasn't as confident. And I have to ask you guys this question. If you're a head coach, do you put somebody in a position to succeed based on their strengths, or do you just run your scheme and you just put somebody in there? Is that kind of what we're seeing here? I mean, I don't understand why. You know what you have with him, and they watch more game film than any of the rest of us do. Why would you put him in a position where he's not succeeding? And go ahead.
No, I think people are making this a lot more complicated than it really is. If you look at last season, we didn't have a pass rush, guys.
Absolutely.
I say as in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So are you going to play man press when you're not going to get to the quarterback? So what's going to happen? Your corners are going to get beat every single time, right? You've got to play that kind of back up, play 8 yards off. You're going to concede the click slant because it doesn't matter anyway. Your guys aren't going to get to the quarterback. I think too much critique was made towards the defensive coaching staff, just based on the fact of the personnel that they had. Look, this goes to the GM, and I love Jason Light to death, but the evaluation of what they thought they had on the defensive line was absolutely incorrect. And they brought in a guy who turned out to be completely lazy, and he did not, it reminded me of the one year when the Bucs won 10 games with Raheem Morris, and they felt like their only weakness was the punting. So they brought in Michael Kanan as their big free agent acquisition. I felt like because the Bucs won 9 games, that they felt like all we need is a guy next to Gerald McCoy, right? We've got Noah Spence. We've got Jacquez Smith, who's going to be coming back from injury. That's all we need on the defensive line, right? We're going to give Will Golston a lot of money. Right. I think they completely F that up, excuse me for saying that. So the coverage is based on what you think you can do. Now, people can, and there's so many ways to argue that and be like, well, they should have blitzed the linebackers more and all that. I get that.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah, but I think there's too much made of the well, you should play press here. You play press every single time. You have to, you've got to understand the offense that you're playing, the formations that they're running. Like, people try to make this more complicated than what it actually is. There wasn't the talent last year, guys, and that's why you saw what you did. And for having the lack of talent and the lack of pass rush, this defense at times last year didn't do as poorly as what some of the media who hype up specific things would have you believe. Both sides of the ball were at fault. And you still looked at a 5-win team who lost how many games by less than 1 score. So it's not all doom and gloom from last season. There's a lot of positives to build on. And I think they've started addressing it from a personnel standpoint this offseason. And hopefully that translates into better play and more wins this year.
Yeah, most definitely. If you look at the players that have been brought in, it's exciting just to see that you have a Vinny Curry. You bring in a Vinny Curry. Unfortunately, Robert Ayers, he's gone. They got rid of Chris Baker. They bring in a JPP. You bring in a Mitch Unrein. You bring in a Bo Allen, and these are guys that you're looking at a different defense than what you saw last year.
No, you're right. And I know we all say pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, but I'm going to tell you right now, the one thing that's going to transform this defense to improve from last year is stopping the run. Guys, that's it. Yeah. If you can force third and longs, then you can unleash these weapons for Smith, right? Hashtag that. I don't know how we get a cool hashtag for the defense, but you can unleash JPP and Curry and Noah Spence in pass rushing situations if it's 3rd and 8. If it's 3rd and 2, that crap ain't gonna fly, guys.
Yeah.
So that's why you see guys like Bo Allen and Mitch Unrein. It's not for them to get upfield and put pressure on the quarterback. It's to help stop the run, right? That's JPP is as hyped as he is. It's not like it's Simeon Rice, right? He's not too bad against the run. The same for Vinny Curry. So that's what I think is the ultimate thing to watch this year that will influence the pass rush and influence those 3rd down situations is slowing down the running attack of the opposing offense.
Yeah, most definitely. And we've talked about this in throughout the offseason, and some of the games that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should have won had they been able to stop the run. I look at that Arizona Cardinals game as one. Possibly the Buffalo Bills game was another one that Tampa should have won had they just been able to stop the run.
Absolutely. I mean, our run defense was just piss poor last year. I mean, couldn't contain the edge, getting gashed up the middle. Just a lot of issues. And I think you saw that, that was the main priority in the offseason, getting guys that can stop the run, but also can rush the passer, getting complete defensive ends, guys that are balanced, guys that can set the edge. So, I mean, the defensive line should make a lot of things better. And Chris is absolutely right. We didn't have the personnel needed on defense last year. And that's why I'm actually quite more concerned that that's another story, just with how Dirk Cutter calls plays and things of that nature. The red zone offense still scares me, but the defense, because they'll have the pieces where they can be more aggressive as far as their coverages, because guys are going to be able to get home as far as pass rush is concerned. So I'm very excited, and we still haven't seen Vita Vea yet, and hopefully we'll see. I think we're probably going to see him next week, but it'll be nice to see what he can bring as far as a formidable run defender and also as a pass rusher.
Yeah, most definitely. So, Chris, I know you wanted to just kind of switch gears a little bit. I know you wanted to talk about Tony Dungy a little bit, and I definitely wanted to give you the floor whenever you're ready to jump in on that. We kind of come back around a little bit, but definitely always willing to talk about somebody who really changed the philosophy of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. when you look back at some of the coaches like your Lehman Bennett's and your Sam Weish's and just the different head coaches that they had in there, and just having somebody like a Tony Dungy who not only changed the philosophy within the team but in the community as well. I think that he's a very special person to Buccaneers all over.
Yeah, and you touched on one of the big pieces to me is active in the community. So if I ask both of you guys, so when did you guys become Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans?
79.
Yeah, early.
Yeah.
98 for me.
So and just giving you guys kind of a personal story. I when I was living in Orlando, and this is kind of the transformation that I had. I grew up because of my father as the team from Washington, right? That was my team. I grew up with John Riggins and Joe Theismann and Charles Mann and Dexter Manley, and watching those Super Bowl teams and the Hogs. And in early 90s, I bought tickets off of Ticketmaster and came down to watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the old sombrero.
Yeah, Houlihan.
Yeah, man. And before it was even Houlihan's, before they even called it that. And I was like, wow, this is a local team. It's an hour and 10 minutes at that time before I-4 became a cluster drive for me to get down here. And this is kind of cool. Like, this team sucks, but at the time they sucked. But and we've had some of the same years recently. But this team, this community embraces them. They're actually the place is packed. They're rooting for this team. And I was like, I'm going to start going to more games. So I started buying games in the end zone via Ticketmaster, and Tony Dungy took over right about that time. And I started noticing a change in the community, in the fan base, because if you were a Bucs fan who started going to those games around that time in the old stadium, we were playing in the NFC Central. So you had Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay.
Green Bay was awful.
Oh my God. Predominantly, you would go to a game and you would sit in a section and it was 70% the opposing team.
Like roaches.
And that's what you saw. When Tony Dungy came in, and what the transformation of what he did, not only transformed the team into wins, but it transformed the Bucs community and the Bucs fan base, because that turned from 70% Green Bay fans to 90% Buccaneer fans at home and rooting for them team. Because what did he didn't just win football games. And that's the one thing that I want people to understand, because I think of this as well. And I say, look, if the team just wins games, more people are going to show up. That's not 100% true in Tampa, guys, because it's a melting pot of the people from the north who root for Chicago and root for the Giants, right? It's that whole thing. It's the belief that he created. It's taking this franchise who had lost for so many years and made the community believe in them. And he did that by getting his players to not only invest in the team, but invest in the community. And if I will forever, I am a Bucs fan because of that man. I'm a Bucs fan because of Tony Dungy, and I bought season tickets and I retained them for 14 years because of that man. And I saw how he left, and I saw how, yes, it was great at first, but I saw the transition of the franchise. And how community became less important, and how police records became less important to our GM, who would just bring in guys like Jeremy Stevens or Russell Maryland or Kellen Winslow. And you can see what's happened to these guys now. And that made me sick as a Bucs fan. And I know there's people who just think it's all about wins and that's all that matters, but it's not, people. It's not all about that. And the culture and the unity and the community presence of what that man gave to this franchise, and the fact that he's the 12th person in the Ring of Honor makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick. And I am disgusted with the owners. And if Malcolm was alive, I can tell you guys, there's no way Tony Dungy would be 12th in the Ring of Honor list. He would have been in the top 3. I guarantee you that. And I'm sorry, I'm tangenting on that, but that's just
you're fine. Please, this is great.
That is how I feel. And no man gave more to this community and and he still continues to do this. And it's not about Super Bowl wins. It's about this man is responsible for so many people becoming Bucs fans. That's that is what uniting is about, right? It's making your players believe in the community. It's creating this culture amongst your franchise. And it's having a man who's so respectable that you're like, you know what? He won 7 games this year, but I can't help but love that man. Like when he was fired, people felt bad because they loved that man. When Shiano was fired, when Raheem was fired, and when Lovey was fired, everyone just talked trash about those guys. Like, we hated that guy. Like, get him out of here. I don't recall that when Tony was let go. And the way he was let go was absolutely disgusting. I've talked to players who have told me of how it actually went down. And I think you heard a little bit of the stories started to come out this week. But here's the thing, like, and we can go on forever about this, but everyone needs to be there for that Pittsburgh home game. It's week 3, and honor the man, because like, we're not going to print t-shirts and say hire Fire Cutter, hire Dungy. It's not about that. It's not about, campaigns to try to bring back some nostalgia. It's about honoring a man who changed this franchise forever. It's amazing. It's just amazing what he did, because this team, look at what happened post him and post the first couple of years of Gruden, and look where we've been. And the way he took that team and it just changed everything. And I'm sorry, and people are probably, I'm not reading the chat. People are probably, making fun of me for saying
not at all. Just quite the opposite, actually.
I respect him so much, and he does not get the credit that he deserves. This man is in the Hall of Fame. This man was in the Colts Ring of Honor long ago, and it's about GD time. It's about damn time that this franchise finally got off their ass and respected the man and put him in the Ring of Honor, because I'm telling you right now, him as the 12th person in is disgusting. He should have been in the top 5. And if Malcolm is probably rolling, I'm not going to say that. It's great. I'm going to end it on a positive. It's so great that he is there, and I will 100% be there, because I have to pay honor to the man who made me a Bucs fan. And it's the reason why I podcasted. It's the reason why I still tweet. It's the reason why I still talk to people. It's because of that man, because I believed in what he did. And even if a team won 15 games, if they had 30 scumbags on the team and all these guys who were assholes when they left the field, I wouldn't respect the coach as much as I did Tony Dungy, who made those players believe that you have to give back to the community. And to me, that meant a lot more than just winning football games.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think I could have said it any better than what you did. I look back at games where the Bears, the Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and just you'd go to those games, and the Bucs weren't that good. And then you could go to a game at noon and get tickets and get good seats, just because there wasn't that same, the drive was different when Tony Dungy came. And to your point, I can remember 97, 98, 99. It was hard to get tickets, and the tailgates. You'd go to the tailgates, and people would still be celebrating and stuff instead of going in to watch the game. I mean, it was just that kind of atmosphere. And you can thank Tony Dungy for that, because of all the other coaches that we've had, nobody has been able to unite the fan base as well as the team and come up with a winning product like what he did. So just what he means to Tampa. I really hope, I hope that it's a sellout, and I hope that it's the majority Bucs fans that are there to really, root for just cheer him on, because this, like you said, this is long overdue.
Yeah. And I'll do one more thing just to say about that, man. I lived through, and Bucs fans who would go to the games when we were in the NFC Central, and you dealt with heckling at your own stadium. And I'm like, man, I'm here.
The fights over at Tampa Bay Center were biblically.
Yeah, I'm watching my home team and I got people are throwing stuff at me like this is ridiculous. I'm at my own stadium. I'm not in Philly. I'm not in Veterans Stadium at the time watching the game. And when we won the Super Bowl, I still had my season tickets. I moved down to the Fort Lauderdale area, and when we won that Super Bowl, I was just in tears because I thought back to all the games that I sat there and I watched us lose, and I walked out of the stadium. I'm like, you know what? This team is changing, and I can see it changing. And it meant so much to me that I experienced the down times. And all these Bucs fans today have experienced so many downtimes from Raheem to Shiano to Lovey. And I can't tell you that Dirk's going to save the day, and Dirk's that kind of guy. I can't tell you that. But when we finally get there, because it's eventually going to happen, and whether that's this year or 10 years from now, it's so worth it as a fan to live through the crap to experience the glory.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can brag about the people that listen to the show. These are some of the most awesome people in the chat. They always bring it every week, and I can't help but appreciate them. And I have to say this: if you're a Bucs fan now, or you have been a Bucs fan for the past 15, 17 years, you are a diehard fan just based on what Tampa has gone through, and even to where they are right now. Last year, a lot of expectations were out there, and they didn't meet those expectations. But fans are right back here again, rooting this team on. So these people are, these people out here that are these diehard fans. They're great. Let's see, Douglas Rendex. Fans become fans pre-Dungy or ride or die with him. Fans became fans during Dungy years or pro Gruden because they never saw a loser or the Super Bowl as the prize. And that's kind of interesting that you say that. Yeah, so there's a lot of truth to that. But again, if you're a fan, you're a fan. And regardless of where you fall in there, you're appreciated because, it takes a lot to continually root for a team and not know if they're going to make it to the playoffs, if they're not going to make it to the playoffs, or what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick comment on what Ren said, and I kind of agree with it. So I wasn't a diehard fan before Dungy. I started going to games, and then I saw what he did when he came in. But I don't like to do the Dungy versus Gruden comparison just because I don't just look at wins, and that's what Dungy means so much more to me because he just he transformed everything, guys. It's what it was. But if you focus on just the wins, you're like, well, Dungy could never get to the Super Bowl, and then we got that with Gruden. I get that, but the things that were important to me, how the players were when they were off the field, like you get the Geno Davis and the Aqib Talibs and the Jeremy Stevens and all these guys, and now we know what Winslow has turned out to be. That turned me off to the team. And it wasn't about wins. So I get it when people say it's all about wins to certain people. To me, it's not about that. Like I would go, guys, there's people in Cleveland, they didn't win a game last year. They go every game. Why? Because they believe in the culture and they believe in what that team's all about. They may not, there's just certain things about the team that you gravitate to. And for me, I gave a crap because I knew that the coach that was there gave a crap about the community and the players. While Warren Sapp may be the biggest asshole at times, he bought in and he played a certain way and he bought in a certain way and he wasn't going out and getting arrested and things like that these guys were doing. When you saw the change post Dungy, that type of stuff started turning me off. And I'm not the guy who says, oh, let's go out and bring in this guy who was just arrested last month and, who's in trouble all the time because he's a great football player. So he's going to give us wins. I'm not that guy, guys. That's just not me. I'd rather not have that type of player on my football team because I feel like that type of player is toxic. And I'll take a 9-win season the right way and having guys who are not, and I know not all the guys do right. I know there's things, but and I know we're dealing with situations right now that I could get amped up about, but that's just me, and I don't fault other fans for feeling different ways. That's just how I am.
Yeah, I totally get it, man. And again, there's no, everybody's got their own way of rooting for the team. And it was good to have it's good to have you on. I appreciate your perspective. Me and like Pless and myself, we look at what's going on the field for the most part, and that's the off the field stuff. But if there's something that needs to be addressed, it does. The situation, the elephant in the room, I addressed that about 4 podcasts ago about it, and I'm kind of just left it at that. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and building the team the right way. And you could see the players that Bruce Allen brought in. You see the players that Mark Dominic brought in, and and again, that's totally goes against what you saw with Tony Dungy. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. Sorry. Pless, what were you going to say?
I mean, I completely agree. I mean, just listening to everything Chris said was awesome. Tony Dungy was just a guy like you could see, at the mall or something, and he would come up to you and say hi, or you could say hi back to him. I mean, just a man of character, which I really respected. I missed that division, that old division. That was just fun games. I started going to games in '98, and then going to football games in '99 was just a blast. Seeing how that team would play, and they gave everything for that man. I mean, they would run through brick walls for Tony Dungy, and it was really cool to see just how they played the game the right way. Very disciplined, always were in the game, never really got blown out. Just playing good football. And then as far as the off the field stuff, that was awesome. I mean, everyone, I think there was like maybe like 15 guys that had their own
You're breaking up.
foundations. In the community, which was awesome. So it was it was very fun to see.
Yeah. Robert Green was asking a question. He said he was asking about the differences and similarities between Cutter and Dungy, or Dungy and Gruden.
Well, I mean, Cutter and Gruden are obviously stubborn-headed offensive coaches. But the comparison between Cutter and Dungy is the team believes in him as a head coach, right? So if you look at the team won 5 games last year, these players were still playing in that last game, right? That's the difference of what you saw with a 4 at that time and 11. Did I remember that right? 4 and 12 team, right? No, 4 and 11. It would have been 4 and 11. Sorry, guys. Had a couple Tito's. 4 and 11 team. I live in Polk County. 4 and 11 team who came out and performed, and because they believed in their coach, right? They won that game. The game meant nothing. The game meant nothing, but they won versus some previous coaches who they wouldn't show up for. So I think there's a comparison to draw for, do the players that play for Coach Cutter believe in him and want him to be successful, just like these players bought in for Coach Dungy. I can't draw much of a Gruden Cutter comparison outside of they're very boneheaded. I mean in that bad way. I'll just say stubborn. Okay, which I'm not saying is a fault. Offensive play callers who believe in their way. They're very similar when it comes to how they address the media and things. And that's the kind of the comparisons that I see.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you say that. I think personally, I think each coach is unique in its own way, And with Dirk Cutter, I really feel like this guy, he has a chance to to actually turn this team around and do something from that 5-win season. I hope to see more of the play calling that will put them in a chance, give them a chance to actually do that. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen, but I am definitely looking forward to this game on Saturday against the Titans. It's great to see the Bucs practicing against somebody else besides themselves. So that's another thing that I'm really looking forward to. I've been seeing the clips and the pictures and the videos of the practices, and that's all well and fine, but you got to get that all has to translate onto the field during the regular season. That's where it counts, and that's where it matters. This is all fun right now. It's cool to watch these guys play, and it's better than what we had been seeing with no football during the offseason. So I'm excited about that, but when we get to the regular season, that's where it all counts, when toe hits leather.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah, preseason is, I look at it as, let's stay healthy. Let's look at some trends that are happening, and then who are those guys that are going to impress via special teams and via some of these other positions that step up and win. There's things that you look at from last year that you want to see. Is it improved? Is the offensive line going to be a more cohesive unit, or are we going to continue to see rotations? Is the defensive line, with all the talent now, which they were void of last year, how long is it going to take them to gel? So the first couple of weeks of the regular season, I think you're going to start seeing some storylines develop based off of that. Plus, you got the, basically your backup quarterback starting for the first 3 weeks, and those games are not cakewalks, guys. It's not like they're playing, Cleveland at home week 1. It's different. Not that Cleveland is. No one in the NFL is a guaranteed win, folks. That's why these predictions in preseason blow my mind, because no one knows. No one knows. Vegas probably knows better because the mob and all that, I think, kind of influences. That's just conspiracy theory. But other than that, nobody knows. So don't get so up in arms if Bleacher Report says we're going to get 1 win, because they probably said we were going to get 12 last year. And how did that turn out?
Yeah, most definitely. Robert Greene made a great point. He talked about play execution is more important than play calling. If these guys are executing like they're supposed to, a lot of things can happen. So that's something that I guess as fans, that's what you really need to look at: is, are the players going out executing the play calls that are out there? Robert Greene was asking you guys, who are some players to watch this week?
Can I make a comment on what Robert said real quick?
Yeah, go
because
for it.
I know so much about play calling. As fans, how much can we evaluate the play calling when look? I don't get that sometimes, because what are you looking at when you said, "Oh, that was a horrible play call"? I could see things from a situational standpoint. You say on 3rd and 1, it probably doesn't make sense. From a formation standpoint, if Charles Sims is in the game, that they're not going to run the ball, they're going to pass. I get things like that. Or I get things like, if you're in the red zone and you're not throwing the ball to Mike Evans, who's this 6'5" plus wide receiver going up against a 5'11" Rogers Cromartie, whoever the heck he's going against, like, why don't you do that? But when guys are running wide open, if what the game film shows, if you watch coaches' film, and the play was executed to go a certain way and the players aren't doing it, why is that bad play calling? I don't understand that. I don't get the emphasis that's put on Dirk Cutter as such a poor play caller, because he's been successful pretty much everywhere he's gone. He won 9 wins his first year for this football team and 5 last year, but there were how many games within 1 score? Now, some of that came through the red zone scoring. So fix that, and it's a completely different season. I don't get the emphasis on that. How can you evaluate what the play calling is versus the execution? Because I saw many times the offensive line not doing what they were supposed to do. I saw many times receivers running wide open and the quarterback not getting them the ball where it needed to be, or whatever it was. So I think way too much is made of that. Dirk's going to call the plays, guys. This team has the talent. The offensive line hopefully is fixed. It's going to be different. if it comes down to that. If this offensive line is fixed now, which hopefully it is, you're going to see a completely different team. And everyone, this is what's going to happen, guys. Everyone's going to come out and say, Dirk Collar is a great play caller. Why? Because the team's executing, because they have an offensive line. That's where it starts. Offensive line, defensive line starts in the trenches. Those guys play well. Those guys play well. Guess what they're going to say about Mike Smith, guys? Oh, he's a great defense coordinator. It's the best pickup we ever had. Come on. It's not that difficult, folks. It's not that difficult. Just dumb it down a little bit and look at what's actually happening.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And I'm right there with you. That again, that makes perfect sense. And you've got a different roster than what you had before, and we talked about that earlier in the show. A lot of the new faces that you have in, and a lot of guys that have stepped up their game to put themselves in a position to succeed. So I think they're going to go out and have the best 53 out there and put themselves in a position to win.
I'm sorry to deflect from Robert's question, because I knew he was asking about the next game.
Oh yeah. Again, I would like to see more of the defensive line. I think that that's been the big emphasis in the offseason. I would like to see them a little bit more, but again, we'll have to wait till game 3 before we can really get a really full look at that defensive line in multiple plays. Let's see. Amazement 717 question: if Sean Wilson doesn't play soon, can he possibly get cut, or will he make the practice squad?
Well, I hope he plays this game. I mentioned him.
He's going to play.
So players that I'm watching this week, kind of going back, it kind of goes in line with that last question. I'm watching guys like Sergio Bailey. If Bobo Wilson doesn't play, I'm watching guys like Sean Wilson. I'm watching guys like the long snapper guys. Like this is, and I'm watching Catanzaro. Right? Is he going to get opportunities to kick again? Is he going to miss another extra point? What's he look like from 40 to 49? I'm looking at the backup linebackers, right? We know we've got Quan. We know we've got Levante Beckwith when he comes back. But what are these other guys doing? Who are the guys that are going to step up? The one thing that I want to look at this defensive line of what you mentioned is, are they getting upfield? Because I didn't see that as much from the starters. I kind of saw that kind of going horizontal versus vertical. In this game, even though Gerald McCoy registered that sack, I want to see, are they going to put pressure? I don't care about sacks. I want pressure, right? That impacts the game.
Yeah, sacks are sexy, but getting pressure is way more important.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the guys that I'm looking at, like the Jake Lampmans, the Cam Lynches, who, in my opinion, tackled ridiculously poorly in week 1 against Miami. Like, who's talking about how poorly Cam Lynch tackled guys, right? Because Cam Lynch is going to win based on if he can tackle, if he has a backup linebacker, and how well he plays on special teams, because he's a damn good special teams player. But if he can't tackle when he's on the field, he's not going to make the team. So these are the guys I'm looking at. And then obviously we're going to continue to evaluate the quarterbacks, right? How good is Fitz and Winston playing? If Winston's running with the twos, is Winston making those twos that much better? How great must it be to be a guy like Freddie Martino, who I know he got some playing time, but some of these kind of, third string wide receivers, running backs, to play with Jameis Winston, because if Winston's going to be what we think he's going to be, those guys should be having a hell of a preseason, because they got the starting quarterback throwing the ball to them or handing the ball off. So that's what I look at in the preseason.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, it looks like, and I'm just going through the chat here. Just to make sure I haven't missed any other questions.
Let me comment on a few things.
Go for it.
I completely agree, with Chris, what he was saying about, the play calling versus execution. That's absolutely right. And I think Dirk is a fine play caller. There's nothing wrong with his plays or anything as far as his system goes. My only issue is just some of the route combinations and the actual play design, where you have guys bunched up a little bit too much, and the routes causes it's pretty much an easy defending play. I mean, when you have 3 guys on the right side and they're running, routes, and they're kind of stumbling all into one area, that's my only issue. That happens sometimes, especially in the red zone. But to Chris's point earlier, if we can run the football, that's gonna help out everything, because you'll be able to play action, you'll be able to design easier plays for the quarterback to make high percentage throws, and that's just something I would like to see more guys use more in better situations, as far as Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin being used more. So just things along those lines. It's just my little nitpicks, but as far as what to watch for this week, I think, I'm going to be looking for, again, red zone offensive line play, and also pressure on defense. If the defensive line can get after the quarterback, that's something we got to see. And obviously getting off the field on third down.
Yeah, most definitely. And, again, just, 3 and outs. Let's see how the defenses get these offenses off the field. That's going to be huge as well, considering what we saw last week.
Yeah, and Plus hit the nail on the head. I want fans to understand this: play design versus play call. Right? What's the design of the play? Is the design of the play every single time to have Deshaun Jackson run a fly route, or are you going to let him run a quick slant where he's open in space and can do what he does best? Right? Is it designed or that you have Mike Evans as a decoy in the red zone, or is it that you've got Mike Evans running the fade? So it design flaws, I think, in Dirk's offense is not necessarily his play calling. It's the design of the play, because and you can go back and look to the Jaguars film and Falcons film of the type of offense that he runs. So I think it's more of people having a problem with design, that they ultimately say, well, it's just a bad play call. Well, it's maybe not the call that's wrong, it's the design. And then it's the execution on that, where then as a fan, well, it doesn't make sense to have this player doing this if he's best at doing this.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, believe it or not, it's been an hour already, and we are, we're about ready to shut all this down. Chris, thank you so much for coming on, man. I hope to get you on again. I hope this wasn't too painful for you coming on and talking football, but I'd like to get you on, as we get into the season, and just kind of get your thoughts on where the Bucs are. I really love your opinion, and just how you view the game, because it's great to get that kind of thing. So hopefully I can get you back on again and talk about that. But I want to give you the opportunity to tell people how to get a hold of you, and actually what kind of projects you are working on right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And this is fun to do. And as the season progresses, I'll probably be diving into game film again, as little free time as I have. That's what people, I think, sometimes don't understand is those of us who do podcasting as a hobby, there's a lot of other stuff that we're doing. So the passion that people bring to wanting to hear you, I think is crazy, because for me to continue to be requested to be on podcasts when I'm not in the game anymore, I just kind of contribute via social media, to me is extremely humbling, because that means people want to hear what I have to say. I want to share just one quick story with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Bucs podcaster for a long time, and the favorite thing that I experienced as a Bucs podcaster was telling a story on my show where a friend of mine, her name is Jessica, has a son named Jaden, who is the most hardcore Bucs fan I've ever met in my life. This is a guy this is a kid who plays football. He goes to a Bucs game and they're getting blown out, and he says, "Mom, we're not leaving this game. I'm sitting here until the very end." So she called the show, or I told the story on the show that she was purchasing season tickets for the two of them. So she played it in the car, and I got to see the reaction of Jaden listening to my voice, getting his mother to tell him that he's now has season tickets for the Buccaneers. It's the stuff like that makes it really cool of being a part of the community. And I appreciate the invite and you having me back on, because it brings me back to those times that make me smile, and being able to kind of just experience that through the eyes of other Bucs fans. So guys, if I'm breaking down film and stuff and I'm watching stuff that's really happening, I'd love to come back on. If people want to hit me up for sports stuff on Twitter, it's at BBP Chris. Bucs Brief Podcast was the previous podcast. So BBP, like Bucs Brief Podcast. Chris, I do my own show. It's why it's extremely successful. It's not talking about beer. It's about hanging out with people in a craft beer environment and having good conversations about that. So that's called BYOCB, and that's available everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else. And there's social media information as well at BYOCB Show on Twitter and Instagram. And that's kind of my fun thing that I started doing at the same time I was doing the Bucs Show. This has been so much fun, guys. I had to remember how to talk sports again, but this is really cool. I appreciate you having me on. Again, like I said, I don't do this often. It's weird to get requests because I'm not doing it. Like it's just, but it's cool. And it's
again, it's you're one of the one guys that I never got to get you on when you were doing it. And I think that you had finally moved on, and it was like I could never get you. So it was just a great opportunity for me to get you on and get your insight. And Michael Pless, I want to get your thoughts. Getting ready to go out, so tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and what are you working on next.
Yes, you can follow me at Real Bucs Talk. You can visit my website, realbucstalk.com. Have a pretty good article up there right now, about passing more on first down. Getting more into analytics, so trying to incorporate that into my writing. Trying to take that next step and diving deeper into the film and telling people what's actually there. But yeah, I mean, it's I just can't wait for the season to start. It was great having you on, Chris. You're a wealth of knowledge. It's always awesome to hear, logic and just smart analysis is really refreshing. So you're always welcome. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun, and we're gearing up for another season, and I'll be breaking down film as well. So it's more the merrier.
Yeah, most definitely. And guys, I want to take a moment to give a shout out to Jaden. I know you mentioned Jaden, Chris, but we have a Jaden who is actually in the hospital right now. He's battling leukemia, and the Arizona Buckaholics were able to raise money for him, for his family, through some raffles. And that's what I love about sports, where you can take sports and transcend it into the community and help people who are in need. And as a parent, I could not even imagine what Jaden's parents are going through, but just the fact that people have come together and out of the goodness of their own heart and taking the time to get out there and help raise money for somebody who's in need like that. So shout out to Jaden, and hopefully he's listening to this in the hospital room. The Arizona Buckaholics did a great job putting all this together. So my shout out to you guys, and it's really appreciated.
That's awesome. That's what the Bucs community is all about. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, man. And again, that's what we should be. We should all be looking out for each other, regardless. And I'm glad that I'm able to contribute when I can, and it's a good feeling to be able to do that. But guys, football on Saturday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing the Tennessee Titans. Another game that you can get a little bit better look at some of these players, get an idea who's going to stay, who's not going to stay. So keep watching these games, and I really appreciate everybody contributing in the chat room, and you guys are great. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here and look for us next week. It'll be myself and Michael Pless next week, and we'll definitely be talking a little bit more about the Tennessee Titans and the Tampa Bay Bucs. And Chris, again, thank you so much. And you have an open invitation to come on whenever you want to.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thank you.